Danny Boyle is out. Bond 25 does not have a director anymore. Am I concerned? Not as concerned as some people, and I'll tell you why. So, Danny Boyle is out, and the discussion has already begun. David Zaritsky over at the Bond Experience, Calvin Dyson, James Bond reviewer, Tom and Chris, the guys over at James Bond Radio, have already chimed in. A lot of thoughts, a lot of concerns. Should we be worried? I'm not as worried as a lot of people, and I'll tell you where my thoughts are.
Until now, all the rumours around Bond have focused on who'll succeed Daniel Craig. The next film is to be his last, but tonight the bigger question for the franchise is who will be its director.
I was taking some overdue holiday.
When Danny Boyle was asked about the as-yet untitled project in March, his answer didn't show the enthusiasm you might expect.
We're working on a script at the moment, and we'll see what happens.
First of all, I sort of always had mixed emotions from the announcement of Danny Boyle as a director for Bond 25. I think he's probably the biggest named director that the franchise has ever had. Danny Boyle is no slouch. He's a pretty accomplished director. He's done 2 Trainspotting movies. One was very good, one was not so good. Slumdog Millionaire, movies that you definitely have heard of. So what happens when you get an auteur director coming in to work with a franchise that's been around for more than 50 years and have a very set way of doing things? Was it a case of butting heads? Maybe, but there's probably more to it than that. One of the things that made me nervous was the announcement that Danny Boyle's James Bond film was going to reflect the Me Too movement, causing some to wonder, was this going to be a feminist James Bond? Was that an overreaction? I don't know. I don't know exactly what Danny Boyle meant to say. All I know is that he decided he was going to reflect the Me Too movement somehow. Does that mean James Bond would be more vilified, maybe put in a negative light for all of his womanizing and so-called misogyny? Or was the spin going to be that James Bond was now going to be a more sensitive James Bond, more sensitive to the current issues facing women today? Does either of those sound like a good thing? Not to me. I know this is not 1964 anymore.
Man talk.
But I've also seen James Bond go a little too far in the other direction.
A sexist, misogynist dinosaur. Sexual harassment.
Bordering on an apologist. Now for me, Casino Royale was a welcome return to masculinity. But even that seemed a little short-lived. Now look, I understand it's a different time. The womanizing ways of James Bond is not going to fly like it used to, but do we have to go so far in the other direction? I mean, we're already concerned that the Bond films have gotten a little too in touch with Bond's childhood issues.
Uh-oh! Someone had some daddy issues.
Nothing could be my father from the truth.
Who? You said my father. No, I didn't. How?
Did not.
Shabba!
For me, this is a dad issue.
Dad issue! Dad! Be dead! Oh. Daddy didn't love me!
I mean, are we already getting a little too sensitive for what a James Bond is supposed to be? I mean, this is my escape. It's my escape from real-world issues into a world where men can be men and it's okay. And again, I know the Bond films like to reflect the issues of the day, but this might be a little too far. Okay, so the big concern now is this going to hold up Bond 25? We don't even have a title yet. Filming was supposed to start in December of 2018. Is this going to hold things up? If I had to take a guess, I would say probably not, even though a lot of people already have pretty much decided that this is going to delay Bond 25.
Shit.
I don't think it will, and here's why. Now, again, I'm just taking a guess here. I don't know anything for sure, but here's some things that are going through my head. First of all, they only announced Danny Boyle in late May of this year, late May of 2018. It's now late August 2018. It's been 3 months. Production was not supposed to get underway until early December of this year. That's a little more than 3 months from now. Now, first of all, for all I know, they already have a director lined up. They might have said, look, we need to get another director before we part ways with Danny Boyle. That's one possibility. if they really did this with no one else in mind, can they get someone in the director's chair in time to start production in 3 months? Yes, and here's why. First of all, again, I already sort of said the idea of an auteur director butting heads possibly with the producers at Eon, that could be part of the problem. Maybe what they're looking for is someone who will take direction better and not walk in with their ideas. That's a possibility. Again, they don't go for A-list directors usually. Another big part of this, is Daniel Craig really going to be willing to sit around and wait for a new director to come in, polish up a new script, bring in his ideas to the table, and eventually get going with the filming of Bond 25? If I had to take a guess, I would say no. I think Daniel Craig has had, and we've talked about it before, a love-hate relationship with playing James Bond. I don't think he wants to sit around for another 6 months to a year. And again, we know they kind of like this late in the year release date. If they push it forward, it can mean a whole nother year. If he sits around and has to wait all that time, I don't think he's going to want to do that. I think he wants to get going. And there's also one more reason why I have actually pretty good feelings about this, and I think the guys over at James Bond Radio might have hit it on the head.
Do you think now this is... I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but do you think, possibly this is information for another podcast, which we might do at some point, but do you think pressure has mounted on Bond, on the making of the next Bond, due to another recent action-packed franchise, which is done critically very well, shall we say? And
do you know what? I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Tell me what that franchise is, Chris.
The last James Bond film, Spectre, came out the same year as Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Now, even though you can guess where my loyalty sits, you had to give it to Rogue Nation. It was a spectacular film in every way, shape, or form, while Spectre was a little lackluster. Fast forward to 2018, and Fallout blows the doors off audiences. This was a spectacular action film, to the point where many have suggested it even raises the bar on action films in general. So, what does that mean for the creators of Bond 25? Well, what I think it means for the people making the next James Bond film is that it's time to up the stakes. You can't just sit there and watch a film like Fallout, dazzle moviegoers and do incredible box office, and just crank out another lackluster James Bond film. You need to ramp it up. So here they are. They got Danny Boyle, who does art house level movies, who wants to do something reflecting the feminist mindset, the Me Too movement, something a little more sensitive, while Fallout is just going to blow people out of the back of the theater the way James Bond used to. Time to make a change. And if I had to take a guess, put those factors together, where Danny Boyle's mind was and where audiences are now looking for spectacular action, that's where I think it was time to make a change. So, like I said, with that in mind, I'm not too worried about this. This really could be a positive step forward. Less PC, more action. So, I'm actually kind of excited about this, and it's not that I don't like Danny Boyle. I mean, he does good work. Again, I'm a fan of Trainspotting. I think he's a fan of James Bond, but I think he's in a different place and not exactly what the filmmakers need right now. The next Bond film really needs to be spectacular to keep James Bond on top of the game. So with that in mind, like I said, I think this is probably a good thing. So I'm not as concerned. I'm not as concerned about release dates because I think Craig is going to push to get this thing done. I hope it doesn't deter from the quality of the film, the idea to try to get something out. But again, with that in mind, I think he will do his best to keep them on schedule. They've got some time to get things going. There have been scripts. Purvis and Wade had a script done and ready to go before Danny Boyle, I think, stepped in and wanted to do something different. Whether or not they're going to follow up on the Spectre storyline and see where that goes, if I had to take a guess, I'd say probably not. But again, it's too early to tell. So again, I think this is kind of positive, actually. I think this is a good step. They're taking the bull by the horns and not just going to let something go if they're not happy with it. So the fact that they actually made a change says that they're looking for something, looking for a quality film, and they want to impress audiences. So again, I'm happy about it. Mildly concerned, but not too concerned. I think Craig is going to do what he needs to do to keep them on schedule, and I think everyone involved wants to make a quality film. So that's where I am with this. I hope that was mildly entertaining. And by the way, stay tuned to Being James Bond. I'm going to leave you with a clip from our next video, which should be coming out in the next few weeks, week or two. And with that, thanks for watching. Again, I'm Joe Darlington. This is Being James Bond, and we'll see you next time.
Ah, Mr. Bond.
Your niece is an excellent dancer.
Let me prove I'm as good a loser as you are a winner, Mr. Bond. Come to lunch on Sunday at Palmyra. It's my house here.
Sunday at noon, then.